Yeah, Shri Doragaru, the Dean of this institute, the business school, Shri the present Chancellor, Ramakrishna Rao, Professor, and we worked together in a number of places. You know, I remember with great pride and pleasure our association. And amongst the audience, there are a great number of friends, dear friends, and distinguished officers from various services, ladies and gentlemen. I must first thank Dr. Murthy and the institution for having invited me here. It is a sort of homecoming for me. You know, I studied in Andhra University long time ago. I completed my honors in 1957. And at that time, all these were sort of hills and fishermen's colonies. And what did I study? I studied geology in 1957. And so being a geologist, my job was to go around the hills, you know. So I had surveyed all these areas where your university is located. So I am extremely familiar, not with the buildings, but with the topography of this area. You know, because I have drawn maps, surveys, and all those things. So that's why I'm saying it's a sort of a homecoming, and it's a great pleasure to be in this university. I was just telling him, I passed on this road quite a bit. I traveled on this, but I did not come in because I said, let him formally invite me someday, then I would come. But that day has come now, and I'm so happy to see that in 8 years' time, after being declared as a sort of deemed university, it is on the top run of not only the Indian universities and aspiring to be a world-class university. I think the credit must go to Dr. Murthy and all his colleagues and the people he has picked up, you know, to run this, and I really congratulate him. Then, Dr. Murthy, when he came there to speak, and when we clapped, he said, something like that he said. But of all the speeches, I liked his speech the best. You know. And he has a sort of, in a way, removed a lot of burden on me about talking about the national security and all that, because he has covered the essence of national security in the few words he has uttered. I think that is wisdom, you know. That is it. In fact, that is what is required. So let me come back to this. And it was great listening to the Professor Kumar. He explained the connection between the topics selected for today, that is coastal security and cyber security, how are they related to international business. I think that is a practical way of looking at things, you know. Beautifully he has brought out. And the Vice Chancellor has brought out various other facets of the university. Now the problem before me is, since the entire session is about coastal security and maritime, the cyber security, I am not going to talk about it because I would be exposed, because you people know much better than me on these subjects. And I can't speak about the university because I don't know anything about the university. And about the national security, Dr. Murthy has already covered the essence, as I have said. There is really nothing for me to speak. Now one more thing, right now it is 11:20. Now it is scheduled to end at about 11:30. So I have 10 minutes between me and Mr. Dora. So 5 minutes it gives me. So this reminds me of something else. In fact, Dr. Murthy himself has said, 3:30 breakfast. Tell me who would have breakfast, he said. Now lunch time is 1:30. If I go on talking, it might become 3. I don't want that to happen, you know. So let me cut down. In Telugu, there is a sort of some proverb. Somebody wanted Ramayana to be explained to him. And the other man asked, how much time have you got? So he said 5 minutes. So he said, look, then katte putte teche. He just said. What does it mean in English for those who don't know Telugu? He said he built, he killed, and he brought back. So that is the sum of the entire Ramayana. So I can tell this subject, national security, is such a vast subject. The challenges of national security are asking me to speak. I can speak in 3 words. I can speak in 3 hours.
3 days.
3 days. So you let me know what you want from me. I have come prepared for a 45-minute leadership in an age of fear, written by one David Rothkopf. What's the name of the book? National Insecurity, not National Security. So if I'm going to say something about the status of Indian national security, I would be quite critical about what is happening. So don't think that everything about Indian national security is all wrong. No. I'm not here to praise the national security. No, I'm here to point out what are the mistakes, what should be done. And that is a point of view in which I would like to cover. Now, what does national security mean? There are a lot of definitions. You know, some people don't even understand what is national security because the moment it comes, we talk of terrorism, we talk of Naxalism, we talk of the Northeast, we talk of Kashmir, and then we talk of some economic security, some vague words, and then about our defense forces, how strong they should be, and all those things. And there ends the dialogue. Occasionally we talk of maritime security, and then you know, cyber security and all that. Talking about cyber security, even though I said I would not speak much, there is a lot of hype about cyber security. For the last 10 years, people talk of cyber security. And I think he said 1 million people have to be trained in this.
Yes.
I don't know who is going to train and where they are going to get training and what type of training and what time frame. I was telling Dr. Murthy, I said you can open 3 more universities, you know, to train the cyber security people. So if that is so, the government of India planned, what I had seen was 500,000 cyber security personnel. In this book which I mentioned to you, he says their biggest problem is getting the cyber security experts. Where are you going to get them from? They're not there. And then one more thing they said, if you train them on the technical side, this technology in cyber security is a double-edged weapon. What happens is, as the technology improves, the same technology is used to break it, to cut it. So, that is one thing. The second is, it becomes more and more complex. Dr. Murthy said, our money in the banks is not safe, so somebody else withdraws. Yesterday what happened, I wanted to change my reservation to come here. And so I have to make some payment of 100 rupees, only 100 rupees, you know. I struggled for 45 minutes and I could not make the payment. Everything else was done, seating, meeting and all those things, you know. Because I happened to sort of go in for a secure site. That secure site has got so many complexities, you know, to reach. So it took me 45 minutes. Ultimately, I gave it up and I told Ramesh, Ramesh, I am unable to do it. Can you see that the ticket is sort of checked in and sent to me? So at 12 o'clock last night, he has sent it. So it's not that easy. It also becomes complex. You know, life becomes complex. You know. So that is the part of cyber security. Now, let me talk about the definition of national security, what we say. Because different people understand national security in different ways. It is like the story of the blind man and the elephant, you know. Somebody catching hold of the tail, they would say, this is national security. Somebody else would say something. There is a definition given by Harold Brown, a former US Secretary of Defense. What did he say? He defined national security as the ability to preserve the nation's physical integrity and territory. That's the first thing. I will read again. National security is the ability to preserve the nation's physical integrity and territory. 2, to maintain its economic relations with the rest of the world on reasonable terms. 3, to preserve its nature, which means the states, the peoples, nature, institutions and governance from disruption from outside, and to control its borders. So this definition perhaps could be taken as the perception of a developed country. Compared to our National Defense College, which is our highest college, you know, in India, as early as in 1980 or so defined national defense. It says national security. National security is an appropriate and aggressive blend of political resilience and maturity, human resources, economic structure and capacity, technological competence, industrial base, and availability of natural resources, and finally, the military might. Now, I leave it to you, gentlemen and ladies, to pick your definition between these two definitions which you would like to take. My choice is certainly the American definition, because at least it says it is an appropriate and aggressive blend of political resilience and maturity. What does it mean? So, at the very definitional comprehensive plan, including so many things, the economy, environment, sustainable development, so many things, and all those things. And two, again, Dr. Murthy, I go back to him, because he said there are so many agencies involved with the national security, and so coordination is the most important part. All the agencies are there, with big boards and directors, director generals, and all those things. But then coordination between the agencies is the most important thing. The third one is what is required in to have diplomacy, to have national security. Today in the globalized world, you have no freedom of action all by yourself. No nation can act on its own. The international community at large, and people should support you, whatever actions you are taking. People say, why don't you attack Pakistan? Why don't you go and do this? No, you can't do. Because they have their own friends, there is a world opinion, there are so many things to be seen and all that. Earlier at least, there used to be international law was defined in a way. Now if somebody attacks you, you hit him back, or if they take some overt action to harm you, you go into that country. But now international law also is changing very fast. He is teaching international business. He should also open a school for international law. Now in international law now, as defined by the Americans, now if you suspect somebody is going to do something, you can attack them. You can go raid them. That's what they did in Iraq and all that. So one has to be very careful, because the entire world could be involved. Then how do you do this? So the only way is, in my younger days in the college, I used to read a book by, who was that? Forgetting the title, the author's name. It's called Winning Friends and Influencing People. Right. So Dale Carnegie. So the same way, what is required is, you have to win friends and influence nations. It is only then that you become strong, not otherwise. So whatever you want to take about China, which is our biggest problem, and Pakistan, I think you must have this in mind. Now I will give you another topic I am going to talk is, he is the founder director of an institute called Human Security. And he is a sort of co-sponsor of this. What is this human security? Why is it important? That is another point I just want to touch. Now let me give you some examples about the coordination. Coordination, comprehensive planning, a few examples I would say. Now, even a layman agrees that there has to be a leader. I negotiated with him for 12 years. A lot of patience and all that. Do you know, a number of times he told me, sir, in India, there is no one prime minister. There are many prime ministers. This is what he always used to tell me. Ultimately, I put him across to the prime minister. We took him to Osaka, where he met Vajpayee. And he told him to his face, sir, you think you are the prime minister, but there are many prime ministers in India, he said. So he asked him, who are the other prime ministers? He said, I don't want to tell you, but there are many prime ministers. You say something, but they do something else. You promised me something else. I keep waiting for 4 months for that to happen. But somebody else, it could be an undersecretary, could be the home minister, somebody else blocks it and it doesn't happen. So, why do you think you are a prime minister? This is what he said. And this is absolutely correct, let me tell you. Then, I can give you some examples. There is lack of coordination between various wings of intelligence. He said, it's only after the event you get to know. That something is missing. Now, RNW and Intelligence Bureau. One is responsible for external, one is responsible, and then local intelligence. There is no free flow of information. And two, information is there, and you can't retrieve it quickly. I will tell you, a lot of these biggest terrorists, at one time or the other, they have all been arrested by the police in the past, on some offense or the other. Dawood Ibrahim has been arrested 2-3 times. he was let off and all that. But it took a lot of time to find out that he was arrested. It was only after the bomb blasts were over, you go through the record and then somewhere you find that he was arrested earlier. And I can tell you so many other chaps. So information retrieval from that also is a problem. So I was talking of sharing of information. Now, there is no coordination. There is some coordination, but it's not enough. There is no coordination between intelligence and police. This is exactly what happened in Gujarat. You know, all those cases, you know. And then, between state police and the central police forces. Take the case of Naxals. You know, local police is there, CRPF is there. And then the funniest thing is, there was an incident in Bastar